Howdy folks, welcome back. Behind me here I have a 2009 Artic H2 1000 ATV. Now I just picked this up. Apparently it does not run or is not in running condition. So we're going to tie into this thing and see if we can't get it to run. Let's go. Alright folks, let's take a quick walk around and show you what we got here. That's the I guess it's an Artic H2 1000 4x4. Now, I know next to nothing about ATVs. I've drove a bunch. None of them were mine. I've never owned one of my own. However, I have driven a few. However, I don't know much about them at all. So that's part of the reason I bought this. I like working on things I've never worked on before, and that's what we're going to do here. So of course it's missing the battery, and as you can see the seat is destroyed. There's the other portion of it there, which is pretty typical, but the rest of it does not look horrible. I mean, it's been used, it's scraped up and banged up, but nothing's really badly broke. There's bolts missing and whatnot, which is to be expected. All balls racing. That's kind of cool. Now I did notice that the previous owner has a lot of the lights and whatever disconnected. Now I wonder if that is some sort of clue as to what the issue may be. Maybe we got an electrical problem. I wouldn't doubt it. That's disconnected there. No battery, which is typical. If the battery was any good, somebody scooped it. This is kind of worn. That's disconnected. Something missing there, a drink holder or something perhaps, I don't know. But it doesn't look terrible, I didn't think anyway. Not for some of the ones I've seen for sale. I've kind of been in the market for a quad for a little while. I've always wanted to have my own, but I never bothered. But now might be the time. And being the cheapskate that I am, now I like messing with things, I figured I would buy one that was broken. Has a winch on it. I don't know whether that works or not, but it doesn't look like the tires are horrible. You can see they've been used, for sure. Done a bit of spinning in their day, I would say, but that's about normal. Now, it didn't come with a key. I guess the previous owner lost the key, but I just jammed this old Kawasaki key that I happen to have in here, and it actually works. So I don't know. Hopefully it's not one of those deals where there's a chip in the key and you have to have the key for it. I know there are some street bikes that have that. Though hopefully that's not the case here, but we will find out soon enough. I think I'm just gonna go ahead and, I have a battery, I'm going to go ahead and put a battery in it and see what kind of things it does. Stand by. Alrighty folks, we got a battery hooked up now. And as a point of interest, before I forget, that's an Everstart battery from Walmart. Walmart carries those, and I have had very good luck with those. In lawnmowers, that is a motorcycle battery that I had out of one of my mini pull tractors. It's brand new, so we should be good to go there. But I just thought maybe it'd be worth mentioning that the last few years I've had very good luck with those Walmart batteries. So let's stuff him down in there. It's out of the road because it's liable to fall, and we'll turn on the key and we will see if anything happens. Oh. Wow, lighten up. Okay, but it's not saying anything, as I don't even know if it's supposed to. Don't know what that's supposed to do. The lighting, I think the sun's probably messing with that a little bit. Let me come round to the other side. The sun's quite bright outside today, so that might be causing some trouble. Let me get up on top. Oh boy. Now. Yeah. So it's not saying anything, and I don't even know if it's supposed to. Maybe it's not. I would assume that's start. I don't know. Not really sure what most of these buttons even do. Well, that's the winch. That much I do know, and that is working. I can hear it. Okay. Cool. Oh, I think I know. All right, well, the winch works. That's something. Yeah, all right. Wow. Look at all the cable clamps on there. They don't even look like they're the right size. Well, we'll go over that later. That's not important, but that is a little bit overkill and not even the right size. I bet you I know. It's not in neutral, so let's see. I would guess. Well, not neutral. Let's see. Well, can I push it? Yeah, that's neutral. All right. What happens now? Nothing. What about lights? Will any of the lights work? Probably not. It looked to me like you had them disconnected. There. Well, we got one light. Nothing there. One there. Okay. Well, that's disconnected. I don't know why that would be. I think that's a warmer, actually. I'm pretty sure there's a warmer in this throttle. Like, use your thumb. And I do remember from riding myself, man, do your hands ever get cold? Like in the fall or winter or whatever have you? Your hands do get really cold. So I guess that's what that is. That's a warmer, I think. That, I don't know. What would that be? Don't be afraid to chime in down in the comments here, folks, because I may need a little help here. I don't know anything about these. The only thing I know how to use is the winch. Because I've been stuck before. The rest, I don't know. All right. Further investigation is required. Guess probably checking the fuses might be the next thing to do. All right, stand by, folks. All right, folks. I think maybe our neutral safety switches, and I don't know it's even the switch perhaps, because I was wiggling the linkage and I got it to turn over. And I couldn't sort of hold the camera and do all that at the same time, so anyway, I got it to turn over, so I just unplugged it for now. And we'll forget about that for the time being. But let's see if it'll actually... And all the yapping I was doing about that battery, there it was, it's a little low, so I got the charger on it. But let's see if we can get it crank over enough to do something. Put the camera down, but there it is. That is not the neutral safety, but that's about it. Anyway, run. So, that flange should be up there holding that pipe in. You can hear it ticking a little like it's leaking. And, well, my guess would be the studs had broke off. It would be nice if they just fell out, but what are the chances of that? Anyway, that's what that noise is, that exhaust. But that we can fix. That we can fix. I've fixed that sort of thing before on motorcycles. So I guess that is not the neutral safety. I thought it was, because I still had to wiggle that to get it to go. I'm not sure. I'll have to look into that some more. But anyway, it runs. It runs. That's cool. Alright, I just want to make sure this has coolant in it before I run it too long. And it does. So that's cool. I already checked the oil. It's got oil in it, so we're good to go there. Now, we'll get rid of that. What I think I would like to do, is see if this will drive. Take it for a little tour. And if it drives and reverses and what have you, then I'm going to go ahead and change the title, because these are titled pieces of equipment. So meaning you have an ownership for it, so that you can plate it and insure it and drive it on the road or on the trails or whatever have you. Now, you don't have to. It's just like an old truck. If you're only going to drive it on the farm, then you don't have to bother. But if this is half decent, I think I wouldn't mind going for a few trail rips, you know. So I think if it's worthy, I'm going to go ahead and put the title into my name and carry on with some of the repairs that need to be made here. Alright, stand by guys. Let's see if we can't take this for a rip. Folks, it runs and it drives. There's some stuff to fix on it, obviously, but high-low works, reverse works. I think the four-wheel drive worked. It was sort of hard to tell, but I believe that it did. So now I want to go through all these things that are not working and see if we can't get them to work. I don't know about this screen. It appears like it's crapped out. It's just glowing and it's not showing me anything. The speedometer doesn't work either. So, you know, perhaps that not working coupled with the fact that they were going to have to do those manifold bolts. That might have been a bad seat. That might have been enough to get them to say, well, let's upgrade. Because it seems to run fine. It just has that little tick because of the exhaust leak. And I don't think that's a major deal. I'm sure I'll be able to fix that. So, let me strip some of its clothes off here so we can see what's going on. Is some of these lights working and some of these other things working. Stand by. Alrighty. So now that it's sitting here practically naked, we can see a little bit more, and I believe I said that I thought the four-wheel drive worked, but I'm a meathead. It's impossible because it's missing the drive shaft. You can see the yoke there, and it's buggered. That yoke is missing, so that little drive shaft isn't even there. So I don't know what happened there. Somebody take it off, or it broke, or what happened, but it's not there, and I do not have it. So that's a little bit of sadness. The four-wheel drive was not working. And I also discovered that I had this lifted up, and it appears that it's locked in four-wheel drive. I lift the front end up and I spun it, and the input shaft turns with the wheels, which it should not do. And I believe this black box here that says Artic on it, I believe that's the shifter. It's electronic. And it doesn't do anything. And I see that wire there just broke off the connector. So there's a pretty good chance that has something to do with it. And that may not be very easy to fix because it's broken, it's sheared right off at the end of the connector. I think I'm going to have to take that off in order to see if I can't repair that and get it to work. Better do that before I go any further, because this wouldn't be much good without four-wheel drive, now would it? Anyway, I did get a bit of good news, however. When I look at this, I don't know how well this is going to show up, but where that flange holds the exhaust tight, the bolts appear to be missing. They're not broke off. So I did not expect that to happen. That's a bit of good news. That I can fix relatively easily. Now that doesn't concern me a whole lot. I'm a little bit more concerned with this four-wheel drive affair. I'm going to dig into that. I'm going to see if, hopefully I can get that black box off without too much trouble, and then maybe I can repair that broken wire and see if that thing will actually work. Stand by. Okie dokie. So we got our little actuator affair off here. That's what it looks like. Fancy plastic thing. Wasn't too hard to get off. I did have to run to town and buy myself a T30 Torx screwdriver, because you need it to be skinny enough to pass between the frame and some of these holes. Anyway, when I got it open, this is what it looks like. Not much wonder it doesn't work. So that wire being broke off, I don't think mattered a whole lot anyways. That is yucky. I tried to rotate that motor. I pulled that little gear out, and that motor will not move, so I don't think there's a whole lot of sense in messing with that. However, so that's where it came from. Let me see if I can. There's a light. Might help us a little. So there's where it came from, and it pushes on that. See how that? I'm rocking the machine right now, and that turns because it's in gear. But if I push that in, and move it, it doesn't rotate. That takes it out of gear. So it pushes that in and does whatever inside there, and takes that out of gear, and then it pops back. So I guess. Yeah, so anyway, that is buggered. So there's another part I'm going to have to look up, I guess. Now, it has rubber boots on it, and it had a definite sealant around the casing because it was hard to get apart. It was almost like a glue. But shame on you, Kawasaki, for putting Artic. Shame on you, Artic, for putting something like that down there, right where this thing is probably going to be in the water, in the mud. Well, it will be most of its life. What did you think was going to happen to that? In all honesty, folks, that electronic actuator is kind of dumb. All you need is something to push that. What's wrong with a mechanical rod? Anywho, that's not how this happens to be, so I guess I'm going to have to look that up and see how much that's going to cost. I did look up the shaft and the yokes for that shaft. It wasn't terrible. It was about 180 bucks. Plus shipping, because of course I'm in Canada and we don't have anything in Canada, which is rather irritating. Alright, so moving along here, I took this off just to have a peek in here and see what's up with this. Now, it looks alright. Belt looks like it's in decent shape. The one thing I did notice, I was hearing some funny noises from this. Now, I guess maybe it's, I don't know. I don't know much about these variable speed clutches. You know, I hear it rattling a little, which I've read that that's a common thing with these. Now, I don't know if it's an issue. It seemed fairly responsive to me, but as I say, I'm definitely not a authority on those. I haven't dealt with them a whole lot. However, the support bearing in here, there's a seal here, I guess, keep the belt dust and whatnot out of the bearing. Stick my finger down in there and move the bearing. It turns alright, but I can feel it a clicking, like the bearing's gone or going. So that's not a big deal. That should be an easy fix. I might even have that bearing. So, what next? What next? I guess I could try and cinch down that exhaust and get it quiet down a little bit, because it does run fairly well. I think, and I don't know, some of you that are watching, if you know a lot about these, you may be thinking that I'm stupid, but I think this is probably worth throwing a bit of money at to get it working right again. It seems to run fairly well. Now, the instrument cluster being, the screen being buggered like it is, and I can't read it, I have no idea how many miles are on this thing, but it's in relatively good condition. It just seems like some of the mechanical stuff that crapped out on it, nobody did anything about it. And when you don't know the story, you don't know the reason why. So I'm going to go ahead and throw some parts at this and see if we can't get it to work better. But I think we'll do the exhaust next here. We're gonna, should be just a matter of finding some studs to put in there. Put that back on. Get that tightened up against there. And then we should be alright. Stand by, folks. Okay, folks, so we went over this, our four-wheel drive actuator here, which is completely trashed. There's not much sense in me trying to mess with that. That is toast. We're going to throw that out. And after doing some reading, they do have kits you can buy. They are a little pricey, but they look pretty cool. Whereas you can switch this back over to a manual type of affair. They give you a bolt-on push rod type thing, and then it puts a lever up here, and it brings that whole four-wheel drive actuator thing back to a manual mechanical type actuator. And they make them for all kinds of different models, so I would assume that this is a bit of a problem with pretty near all the different models, from what I've read anyway. As I said before, I'm not familiar with ATVs really, but it makes sense to me that if you put something plastic and electronic down low like that, it's going to get ruined in a very short time. In any case, we'll look into that eventually. I have ordered the parts with it to redo the shaft here. They're going to be a couple of days coming. They weren't terribly expensive, but naturally, me being in Canada here, I had to order them from the US, and they were tariffed, so they ended up costing me a bit more than what I'd hoped. But anyway, thanks President Trump, thanks for that. But anyway, can't do nothing about it, so I'm going to move on here, and I think now I'm going to try and figure out why my cluster doesn't work. So if you turn the key on, I'll try and turn it on here with one hand. I don't know if I can. You turn on the key, and that's all you get. Now, I'm pretty sure that speedometer should cycle once when you turn on the key. And there's our little information cluster, and it lights up, but there's no information on it whatsoever. So some of the reading I've been doing, it seems like it's fairly common for these to get broken wires or very poor connection, and that would make sense to me. You have the wiring harness runs down here, and as you're turning your handlebars, so of course this is mounted up here, right? As you're turning that all the time, you have a tendency to damage that, and that's some of the things I've read. That seems to be a common problem. Another thing that I read says that a common problem with these is dirty or poor connections at the ECU here, so that screen isn't receiving any information from the computer, as so to speak. So I think that is going to be my next. I'm going to try and tackle that. I read several stories where guys had this happen, and they bought a new cluster and replaced it, and they had the same problem. So I don't want to go through that, because that cluster is about $500 US plus tariffs for me. So I don't really want to do that if I can help it. So this could take a little time sorting through this harness, but it's well worth it if we do find an issue and we can get that to work again. Now the machine runs and drives and does all it's supposed to do without that working. However, I think it would be handy to know what gear you're in and what your temperature's like and such. That would be helpful. Anyway, let's go. We're gonna tie into that and see what we can figure out. Okay, folks. So as I've been messing around with this wiring, I managed to inadvertently kind of wiggle the fuse block, and I lost the light on the ignition. So I thought, okay, let me pull this out and have a look, and you could wiggle it around like so, or push on the fuses, and it would intermittently cut out on me. So what I discovered was this, and hopefully you'll be able to see it, but there's a lot of that sort of white powderish corrosion on the fuses, and as I wiggled the fuses around, it would cut in and out, cut in and out. So I thought, well, I'd better take each fuse out, clean it, maybe kind of bend it kind of diagonally so it fits nice and tight in its holder, because they don't seem to fit super tight in there. You know, when something electrical sits a long time, you'll get that kind of, I don't know what causes that white powdery crud, but some sort of chemical reaction, I guess, and that's a problem. You're going to get poor connection. So I'm going to go through all of these, the relays included, and clean all these spades so that we get good connection, because if we're getting intermittent connections, that's a problem. And I'm not sure whether that's going to solve our screen issue, which is still not telling me anything, but it's a place to start. We're going to work our way through the whole setup and see what we can figure out. So stand by while I clean up these fuses. Alright folks, we have our drive shaft installed. Now, I don't mind telling you, that was not very much fun. I did not video that because there was only enough room in there for my two hands, so you wouldn't have been able to see anything anyways. Being that it's such a short shaft, the only way to do it was to slip the shaft in and then assemble the yoke here. So you put the yoke in and put the 4 bearing caps in and the clips, which is a little tricky down here, trying to slip it in nicely so that you don't knock the needle bearings out. That's much nicer to assemble on a bench and then bolt it on, but that's not the way they designed that. You can't get at the nut back here, the big nut that holds this U-joint on, so this was sort of the only way I could see to do it anyways. So it was a bit of a stick handle, but that's on. So the next item up for bids here is this wire that we found a little bit ago, broke off here, that was causing our loss of spark. So that was not related to what we were doing here, because it did run as you saw, but in taking all the covers and plastic off, I probably pulled on that and broke it, because you can see there was a butt splice on this one the same as here, and it wasn't crimped very well. So I'm going to solder that back together, and I'm going to solder that one back together as well while we're here. That way we got a nice connection. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and I'll get back with you in a sec. Stand by. Alright, so we've got our 2 wires that were broken, soldered back together, heat shrink on top. Got this rubber, this very soft rubber membrane affair that the wires go through. I guess it's supposed to seal it because this has oil in it. So hopefully that doesn't leak now that we've disturbed it. In any case, that should fix our no spark issue. We'll put that cover back on and then we'll carry on. We gotta tidy up all this wiring that we tore apart, and I want to, well, of course we're going to have to put oil in it again and change the filter. I got a filter for it. I'm going to take this for a little spin and make sure that the 4-wheel drive works. I'm sure that it does, but just want to be sure before I go ahead and bother buying one of those kits to switch the actuator over to manual again. Anyhow, let's get this cover back on and see how we make out after that. Okay folks, so I got my cover back on and I verified that we have spark. Just whirled it over briefly, and we do. However, we did run into some more sadness, and I'll show you what it is. So this here is a cap that goes on the oil pan. You can remove this to service the sump screen for the oil pump. And there's your plug that you drain, so you can drain to an oil change. Now, it had this plug here, fine straight thread, with that plastic sealing washer on it. Steel bolt, aluminum housing. So what do you suppose happened? Some wanker tightened that way too tight and stripped those threads. Now, when I took it off to drain the oil, I felt like it was a bit loose. And I'm sure that's why. Someone over tightened that. Believe it or not, it was not me. I've done it before, that's how I know. Anyway, to fix that, as luck would have it, that was almost the right size for a 3/8 MPT pipe plug. So I ran a pipe tap through there. We're going to put this tapered pipe plug in there instead. That should solve that problem. I would imagine I could buy that, but we're going to solve it this way for now. It's kind of going to stick out. I would prefer one of the ones with an that takes an Allen key, because they'll sit a little flusher. Maybe I'll get one like that eventually. But for the time being, this will keep our oil from leaking, because it was leaking, and that's how I discovered that. I thought, well, maybe it'll be tight enough, but no, it's not. In any case, that's how we're going to solve that. So I'm going to have to clean that underneath. So I don't know if you're going to be able to see, but it goes right there. So I'm going to have to clean that old gasket maker off of there and reseal that before I put it back on. So that's what we're going to do next. That was sort of unexpected, but so be it. We'll get those surfaces cleaned up and resealed and get some oil back in this thing. Alright folks, so that's super cool. You saw me go up that steep hill by the side of my house, and the film does not do it justice, I assure you. It's very steep. You can barely weed eat it, let alone cut it. That's why it's covered in those creeping weeds. So I was doing that to test the four-wheel drive. There was not much chance it was going to make it up that without it. And you probably saw the front tires slipping there a little bit at the top. So that was the only reason I wanted to do that. So we got it, it's running decent again. Seems to run pretty well. Four-wheel drive does work. However, it's in four-wheel drive all the time because we don't have our actuator. I got all of the main things done that I wanted to do. Now I'm going to have to buy some parts. I'm going to buy a kit that switches that over to mechanical to take it in and out of four-wheel drive, because those electronic actuators just don't last, and I don't think they last on any of the machines. Doesn't seem to matter which one you look up, they all seem to have problems with that. So I'm going to buy that now that I know it works. And I don't know about this instrument pod. I may just bite the bullet and buy it. I mean, I don't really care that much about how fast I'm going, but it gives you other useful information. It'll throw up trouble codes for you if something's wrong, and that's very helpful when it has a lot of electronics on it. It's very helpful for troubleshooting. So they're pretty close to $600 for one of those, but I think it's worth it. I think we still got a pretty good machine here. So I'm going to have to order some more parts for this. So this is about where we're going to have to leave this. It's getting a little long in the tooth anyways. We're going to have to do a part 2 on this rebuild here. I've just got the wires tidied up enough that I could drive it and not melt any of them, but I still got a bit of work to do there. investigate these hand warmer grips. See why they're not working. We got lights to deal with. We've got a bunch more to do yet, but the main things are working good. So we're gonna leave this one here. Thanks for watching. Watch out for part 2 coming up. Talk to you soon. As I said, I've ordered the shaft. And everyone's on this kick about buy Canadian, support Canada, blah, 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 which I'm all for. Being a Canadian, I'm for that. So, Canadians, start making, start growing, start doing the things that we need. And then we will buy it. People buy it from the Americans because we don't make it. We don't have it. We don't stock it. That makes me so mad.